hence why this segment is called Still Figuring It Out.
Yeah.
Because we are literally still figuring it out. Good evening. Hello. Hi, I'm Rosie. And, oh, look, I've started again. And welcome to Still Figuring It Out. Today, we have a special guest. Kerry, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Kerry Phillips, and I am 30-something, and I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach, and no, I don't like sand between my
Is this
toes.
still a black?
You said introduce
It's just
yourself, so I
blind
was put on the spot, so I didn't know what I wanted to say.
Is it age, sand, and location?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm really well. I've just had a 2-week stint in Jamaica, and I'm glad to be back.
Someone's showing off.
No, there's no showing off, just a little tan, you know.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that's why you showed no arms, just all arms, sleeve out or no sleeves. Yeah, okay, that's cool. I get it. It's fine. It's no problem.
Okay, so today's topic on Still Figuring It Out is why do we believe we are not enough? Now, this isn't for everybody. And again, we're back to the still figuring it out stage. So sometimes my topics will appeal to some and sometimes they won't. But today we're not just talking about women per se in regards to still figuring it out. We're talking about males as well. So today I had a conversation and a compliment was made in regards to women about how super we are, about the things that we do as mothers, the things that we do as women in regards to working, coming home, cooking, cleaning, keeping a house, having your own car, holding a job down, succeeding through the ranks, studying. And after all of that, still feeling like we're not enough. And where does that feeling come from? And it really made me think about the evolution of women, where we started, how we've come through society, how our roles have changed in society, and does that play a part in why we feel we're not enough? But then it made me kind of think further into that about how do men feel with that feeling of not feeling enough? So you go through puberty, you go through peer pressure, you go through schooling, you go through college, you go through expectations of you, and then potentially getting a job or not, starting your own business or not, becoming embroiled in the police because of potentially just your ethnicity alone creates that scenario. And it makes me think about my own children. I have 3 sons, and about how they navigate the world and how they feel in regards to whether they're enough. So today we're trying to figure it out, how we get here and how we get to those triggers, and potentially how we kind of solutionize and work through them. Because it's all well and good saying, okay, we've had a discussion about not feeling enough, but how do we begin to start unpicking that? And how do we begin to start feeling enough? And when that thought comes into our mind, how do we then start unpicking that and stepping out of that zone? So I think that's kind of the topic and focus where we're at today.
I like that. Yeah, interesting.
So give me an example. I wouldn't say an example, but can you give me a time where you've ever had that feeling of not feeling enough, or just being in that space whereby there was a set expectation on you and you didn't think you could achieve it and it just felt overwhelming?
I think that kind of comes on a daily basis, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Because I feel like speaking for myself, I always set myself an expectation, a level where I want to get to. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I don't reach that, I feel like, you know what, I'm not at the space where I need to be.
Okay.
I think what helped me compared to a lot of other people is that I stopped social media for 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I think social media, in my opinion, heightened a lot of reasons why certain men and women don't feel enough, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm just saying that this is what I feel. Because what I did, when I cut out social media from 2018 to 2020, I found myself before then comparing myself to what everybody else is doing. And like all the accomplishments that I achieved, they were little compared to somebody that's showing that they got a new yard or a new house, or they've got a family, they're married, kids, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at your little accomplishments and you start belittling your accomplishments, but really and truly, on the grand scheme of things, they're actually big.
They're massive.
They're massive.
Yeah.
But when I stopped comparing myself to what everybody else is doing, and then I realized, you know what? Nah, for me, I'm actually doing some good things. I'm actually doing some great things. And I think I've said this before. Social media it's about who's using the tool. Like, I don't think all social media is bad. I feel like you putting a knife in the hands of a murderer, probably be a bad idea. Put a knife in the hands of a chef, probably make me a good meal. So we don't ban knives. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So, but I just genuinely feel like it's about the person that's in front of it. And I think there are a lot of times where men and women, whether we talk about relationships, whether we talk about friendships and stuff like that, we're only seeing the highlights.
Yes.
Of what everybody's showing. No one's seeing the behind the scenes.
No.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so can I ask you,
Yeah.
now this is for me personally,
Yeah.
I go back to where those expectations initially came from. So who shaped my idea of what my expectations should be? Yeah. And I look at my family, and my family are ever so proud of me. But what I sometimes feel is that their expectations are quite high of me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to live up to them. And I literally break my back to make sure I don't let them down. When actually, sometimes I just feel like I just want to lie down in bed and I don't feel like doing what you want me to do and what your expectation of me is. And I remember always being quite successful at school. So I'd quite smart, wouldn't revise, still get quite top high marks. Yeah. Bad habit. But my parents and my grandparents and my aunties and uncles, they wouldn't celebrate so much. It was always, well, we knew you could do it. And it was that expectation for me that sometimes disappointed me because I wanted to be celebrated because actually I did something good. Well, you're used to it. And my mum used to have this saying. So A was absolutely fabulous. B was borderline. C was a catastrophe. And D was a disaster. And that's how my grades were always described as. Okay. So when you come out of school with 13 GCSEs, all C's and above, you want to be celebrated because you know what? You actually took on an extra module, you took on an extra lesson, and it wasn't enough. Yeah. And I think that was the beginning of my journey of not feeling enough in regards to not accomplishing enough. So that C for catastrophe that I did get, that D for disaster that I might have got, it wasn't even a consideration that I could think about because that was how it was described.
It needed to be higher than that.
You needed to make sure you walked those exams. Yeah. And the thing is, I absolutely didn't like the way I was taught, but I was interested in the subject. Yeah. So I would read, but I wouldn't read what they gave me. I would read around everything else. And that was how I gained my knowledge. Yeah. But can you tell me, where do you think your expectations come from?
I think, if I'm honest, I think my expectations come from, and I've never really sat down and had this conversation properly with my mum. But I feel like my expectation came from as soon as my dad was really out of the picture.
Okay.
As soon as my dad was out of the picture, for me, it was always going to be a thing of where, like, I wanted to make sure that I provide for my family. Okay. I always wanted to make sure that I was the man of the household, and I used to go between my mum and my nans. And I think for me, a lot of it is peer pressure put on myself by myself. Okay. And I had this conversation with Tricky and my brother Tristan recently about peer pressure and what it's deemed as. But a lot of the pressures are coming from my own intrusive thoughts in my head saying that I need to be this way. Okay. I need to do this. I need to do that. When really and truly, my mum weren't saying you got to be the man of the house. My mum weren't saying to me, like, you need to make sure it's this. My mum weren't putting that pressure on me. Just being real. But it's one of those ones where I was the eldest. Okay. So then my sister comes along, and at first my sister came along, and there was this kind of battle for kind of love. Like, I wanted a sister, but in the same breath, it's a battle of, like, I was the only one for ages. Yeah. Now you've just come along. And then my little brother came along, and then it was the expectation of, okay, cool, these are like my kids now as well. You know what I mean? So that expectation for me, I feel like it came from me putting the pressures on myself, but also as well what society deemed a man to be. Okay. Like, a man had to go out and do this, a man had to do this, a man had to do that. And I feel like that's where some of the pressures is coming on in terms of, like, the mental health and the well-being in some men, because they don't feel like they are enough, because once again, I'll go back to social media. you're in friendships or relationships where the other person expects you to be this way.
Yes.
And you should be this way because I've seen this husband do that, or I've seen this boyfriend.
Now, you and I both know social media has this impact, because I'm in utter agreement with you in regards to social media and the damage it can cause.
Yeah.
It has literally got the capacity to break, send people to suicide, literally have the capacity to cause breakdowns in relationships, and even down to the point of just a lack of self-worth.
Yeah, real.
Now, you and I both know there are social media memes that come up with what a real man is and what a real woman is. Now, they are some of the worst memes I've seen in my life. And what I've always had conversations about is about the responsibility of those who use social media. Now, for me, you said it quite early that your hiatus on social media gave you the ability to self-reflect, gave you the ability to look at yourself, gave you the ability to understand that comparison was the thief of joy.
Yeah, facts.
But what it also does is it educates. And it's the thing about discernment about what you're looking at. Now, as you said, people only show the highlights. And I wonder if social media had a dislike button, like YouTube does, if social media had, like, for example, the photo and the photo app and the app that disappears after 24 hours, I'm not naming them, and the app that people's so hooked with that I refuse to download, the one that come from one place and the other place is trying to ban, if you know what I mean. But those apps are creating a very big platform for people to present their best self.
Yeah.
If there was a dislike button, what would happen? What do you think?
I think if there was a dislike button, I think there would be a lot of dislikes with certain things. However, I kind of look at things a bit different. Sometimes when I look at things of where some people are not, they don't necessarily dislike you, they just don't want you doing better than them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it will be a thing of where, like, they won't like that because it's a reflection of something that they're not doing right within themselves.
Okay.
So for some, like, I'm sure everybody's seen, like, you look at your story and your story would have this as many views, right? But you can put that post up and that post won't get the same amount of likes. Now, I don't know. Listen, before somebody comes in the comments and talking about, but it's the algorithms. I don't know what's going on here. I don't want to hear that. Listen, I'm not tech savvy. I don't know. But what I am saying is that sometimes not just because they didn't like the picture doesn't mean they don't like the picture.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and this is where, like, for me with Saving Souls, I've got the mental health organisation that I've got. We've got the men's football team and we've got women's self-defence. Okay. Then we've got the men's forum and we're trying to go into the realm of having a women's forum. Right?
Okay.
And the reason for that is to get to a space where we can come together and we can literally just have a conversation where men and women talk together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore the ringtone, it's fine. So don't whatsoever, because it should actually be turned off because we're in a professional environment. But it's fine.
It's an alarm. It's an alarm clock.
Okay. Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to create a space where men and women come together and have conversations rather than it being what a man should be
and what a woman should be.
Because we need to have these conversations.
Because right about now, when we look at men and women, we're very fragmented. We're very, very fragmented. We're so kind of, I can't even think of the word of how far apart we are.
Yeah. And
women's ideals and men's ideals are so kind of separate that to bring them together, I think it would create a bridge. Yeah. But there is a danger with that as well. Because if women are still not in the right mindset and still of the space of lack, not being enough, bringing them into a male space, are we then setting them up to act a certain way to gain that energy?
Yeah, I hear you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And will men do the same? Because I know there are some men that act up when they see women.
But I think this is where what we do in the back end of thing, the teaching comes from regards to the separate spaces that we have. So, for example, like we've got the women's self-defense class, and my aim is to change the narrative so the man them know that, listen, it's not about women don't go here, women don't do this, women do that, don't do that. It's men, stop doing foolishness.
Okay.
So when we can start changing that narrative there, and in terms of like, I'm talking from my standpoint and I'm putting it across to the men that this is what we're doing, it's like basically saying like, do you know what? The men in this space have the women's back, and then the women in that space have the men back.
Yes.
Men's back. And it comes together, and we kind of make something together and build a bigger community. Because, and I'm going off a bit on a tangent here, but there's so much programs and there's so much stuff that are out there for the youth in terms of helping and supporting the youth. But and there's more. There's so much stuff out there for helping the youth and stuff like that. But like, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of stuff that we're going through as adults that we're not dealing with yet.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Agreed. And there are people with trauma having children.
Yeah.
And that trauma then becomes a generational transition. Yeah. And then the children end up with it. And then they're placed with the responsibility of breaking that when potentially they don't have anybody around them with the tools to show them how to do that.
Yeah, real.
So for me, I think that the idea of not being enough, I think there are many contributing factors. So you've definitely outlined social media in regards to comparison, in regards to what's posted, in regards to the realness of social media and the need for attention on it. I think our parental expectations play a significant part in regards to whether we feel enough or not. I think a choice as well in regards to the information we intake and how we process that. So again,
I've got something controversial afterwards.
Oh, please bring it. Go ahead.
And once again, this is my opinion. I think something that you said, I thought choice that you was going to go onto it. I also think the not feeling enough is also determined on the people that you have around you. And sometimes we stay in certain situations, whether it's friendships or relationships, because of how long we've been with said individual or been around known said individual. And I think sometimes what can happen is that you don't feel enough because at the time, maybe when you guys met, whether it's friendship or relationship, your friendship or relationship was based on a dynamic that suited you at that time.
Of course.
And then for some of you, some have a growth mindset, some have a fixed mindset. And if you've got a growth mindset and somebody's still in that fixed mindset, you might have outgrown that person, and the person that you're at now, you might now not necessarily choose that person if you could start again.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So, hindsight is a wonderful thing.
It's an amazing thing.
2020 vision.
So for me, it's like also looking at who do you have around with
you?
Because if you've got the right people around you, that I'm not saying that will take it away, but they will make you feel like you're enough.
Of course. And I agree with you. In regards to choice, it was to do with about who you have around you, the things you choose to consume, the things you choose to do with the information that you have, and how you process that information. Because back to conversations that we have, so we go back and we look at, when did you learn how to critical think? When did you learn how to question things that you were shown, that you were seen, that you were having conversations about? Now, I know that from a very young age, we are not taught to critical think. And that critical thinking is what enables people to get into that space whereby they don't have that critical thinking to understand that they are enough, they are doing enough, that there is enough, that they are more than enough that they are doing. But that feeling inside comes from a place that is not even rational.
Yeah, agreed.
But that critical thinking is critical, hence why it's called critical. That critical thinking enables people to be able to see, actually, I'm doing this, I've done this, I've achieved this. And I think people concentrate on the goal rather than the steps of the journey.
100%, yeah.
And those
in a hurry.
Yeah, and this is what I've realised. Everybody is in a hurry. When I went to Jamaica, I realised that London is on crack, speed, amphetamine and MDMA all in one go.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
You go to the bank, just know that you're going for a whole day. You might as well bring your breakfast, lunch, and dinner because literally they're going to tell you taking time is not laziness. Why are you in a rush? You should have left your house with enough time to enable you to do what you were supposed to do. Everybody's on a rush. You leave your house with just enough time to get to work. You leave work just enough time to get home. And it's everybody's trying to squeeze so many things into their life. And I'm wondering if that, again, is back to that not feeling enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Because why are we doing so much? What is it? What is guiding that need to be doing so much, so often, like, it's like, I wonder if it's a fix sometimes.
It's instant. Everything's in an instant. Like, let's say, for example,
Messaging, WhatsApp killed everybody.
Listen, like,
Black chat.
And also the way that we interact with people now. Like, so if I get my phone now and my phone doesn't load the internet within 3 seconds, like, I'm literally saying, what's wrong with this?
You're doing a Rafiki up in the air.
Yeah, like, but that's 3 seconds. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think the way that we communicate as well, as you said, it's WhatsApp, it's text, it's stuff like that.
We've taken the emotion out of communication.
So when you're texting and we're having conversations by texts, do you know how much stuff gets misconstrued?
Oh my goodness.
Just by a text.
Oh my. Well, I read your tone.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No.
I didn't have a tone.
That's why I try to always say, listen, stop texting. I don't want to do this texting thing.
Message.
Yeah.
Phone me.
Phone me. Let's have a phone conversation.
The other thing is, though, and I agree with you, that instantness. I sent you a WhatsApp. Okay, somebody sends me a WhatsApp. I instant messaged you. It's called an instant message. It's not called instant answer.
Listen, don't even listen. I saw something the other day that killed me. Yeah, and it said something like, "But I saw you on Instagram, right?" And it said something like, "I couldn't care less if I was on the news. I'll reply when I reply."
Exactly.
And even things like that, people fall out because of the fact
you didn't reply to my message.
And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Like, people that know me, sometimes I'm the longest person to get back to you. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because I need to look after my own space and my own well-being before I can actually indulge in certain conversations.
Of course.
Because then if, for example, somebody comes to me and they start telling me that they're going through something, and then I can only give you in a certain portion of time, you might even look at me differently for that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And there is no space to win. Yeah. And the thing is, again, we're back to that communication. It could be potentially, I don't have enough time to answer you right now. I've seen your message. I'll answer you later. And it's about the levels of communication. But people expect instant access to your time. Yeah. And again, is that because they feel that they're not enough and they need that energy? Yeah. So I wonder sometimes if it's a need for the energy from the other person, why they expect an instant message, why they expect their time. But again, it's like we're back to that why, those reasons. Now, you brought up society earlier in regards to society shaping why we're not enough. And I know that you brought up social media, but I think societal norms, what has become the norm, what has become accepted is a reason as well as to why some people feel that they're not doing enough. Yeah. And I remember hearing a family member say that, well, I'm this age and I haven't done this. And I literally had to look at them and I said, well, who said you had to do it at that age? Who said you had to have this, have that, and have this at a certain age? Yeah, well, you know, like, isn't that the thing that's supposed to happen? Well, I'm 23, I'm supposed to do... I was like, no.
And you know, more time, that's people putting the pressure on themselves.
Yes.
Like, you have to be this age to do this, and you have to have this by this time. Like, and even myself, I'll be real with you. Like, I had a little bit of an anxiety attack a couple of weeks ago, and it's not a real attack. Mm-hmm. It was one of those ones where it was like certain things started to happen, and for the first time, I was like, I want a child.
Oh goodness,
mad. So cut a long story, it's crazy. So cut a long story short, I was watching Arsenal doing the lap of honour. So I'm at the Arsenal game, and the particular player, he had his daughter, put his daughter down, ran off. The daughter ran towards him, and he picked her up. And for the first time...
The emotional pang.
Yeah, it was like, it was wild. It was like, whoa, hold on a second. And then I look back at like the certain stuff that I'm doing and I think to myself, like, who am I leaving my legacy down to? And then I started thinking, okay, wow, like at this age, don't have a child. By the time I have a child, maybe I might be an old dad. Then you start going through a whole load of
start
emotions.
overthinking and start
But the problem
unpicking
is,
everything.
I am in a place where I can regulate how I feel.
Okay.
How many people can't? How many people see that? And even from, if we take it from a woman's standpoint, for some women, it might be a thing of where like, I'm 36, I'm this age, or I'm that age. It's like, my biological clock is ticking. And it's like, all of a sudden, I don't know whether I'm going to have to, and then there's that emotional pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much around it in terms of like, I feel like a lot of it, we put a lot of pressures on ourselves in terms of thinking
that pressure comes from somewhere.
Yeah. It's got to come from the expectations of what we see. But it's difficult for me to answer it now because we have social media.
Yes.
But I'd love to know if we got rid of that when we were younger, what was the expectation? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd love to know how that worked.
Yeah. Maybe we might get somebody older on that didn't grow with social media to have that discussion about what their expectations were. But what I want to ask you is, you spoke about regulation and being able to self-regulate. How did you get to that position? How did you get that discernment, that understanding of yourself to know that you see all of these expectations and this not feeling enough? How did you get to that point that you said, stop, let me just unravel that and look at myself and understand myself? How did you get to that point?
3 things. Found God, went counselling, stopped social media.
Aye. And
that's just the reality of it. When I found God and I started to understand the Bible, and I started to really, because at first I didn't believe. I wasn't a believer.
Okay.
I believed there was somebody up there, but I just didn't know who. Mm-hmm. And I think when in 2012 my nan got cancer, and when my nan got cancer, I was on this because this woman's been going to church for however long. Like, why would somebody that's really up there not protect her, not look after her? I started going like that. And then only until 2016, that's when I got into a situation where I found God. And I realized, wow, like, this is the reason why she's still here, probably because she kept her faith. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So I saw it from a different angle. Then I went to the counselling because there was some underlining stuff in terms of like family issues and stuff like that, and myself that I didn't deal with until I got to a certain age. Mm-hmm. So then I had the counselling, then I started understanding myself. And I recommend counselling to anybody that's listening. Do not think counselling is about somebody coming in and judging you and everything like that. A lot of the times, the answers were already in me.
Of course.
They just asked the particular questions
to price it out of you.
Do you know what I mean? And then that helped.
Depends on the type of counselling you have. Let's be clear about that, because not all counselling works the same.
Not all counselling works the same, but I can only go for me. Like,
of course,
what definitely worked for me. And then social media. Like, I started realizing that a lot of the times, as I said earlier, a lot of the stuff that I was calling minimal, they're big things because they're in my world. Yeah. To somebody else that's doing something else, that might not be big to them, but you know what? It's big to me. So yeah, I absolutely love your understanding of what helped you reach that point. I think what we could also add to that is the power of understanding of what you're looking at, what you're being compared at, and who sets the success measures. Yeah, because if you allow somebody else to benchmark and set your success measure, you will always be bound and tied to them. Rather than having your own. I love that. Yeah, that's dope. I'm going to steal that.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so if you have been listening in, you have been locked into Rosie on Still Figuring Out, and my guest,
Kerry Phillips.
And that is a wrap. Peace.